Welcome everyone to It Tastes Different Game Reviews. And tonight we're going to review Blacktail. Blacktail is a first-person shooter game developed by Parasite and published by Focus Entertainment. It was released for basically Windows, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S on December 5th, 2022. We're going to kind of get into this, everybody's take on this little first-person action-adventure game. It's got some mythology, some all kinds of weird craziness to it, good and evil, all that fun stuff. So we're going to jump right into it and let Shane take it away for the first-person review on this one. Shane, what do you think of this game?
This is a hard game to play and review because I feel strongly in two different ways about this game. The game is very story focused. I love good story focused games. Voice acting is great. The story is actually very interesting. That's it. The gameplay aspects of this game are not done great. They're not terrible, but it just feels like they're extremely lacking. The combat system doesn't work well enough for what this game is trying to do. There's an RPG kind of aspect for building your character stats and things like that. The gameplay is the weakest link. It's really hard to say too much because you upgrade and things like that, like a typical game of this genre. And it doesn't work right. It doesn't draw you in any passion whatsoever. Normally, I would think these two guys would be into it because there's a lot of things you can put, skill points and things like that into, but it really isn't that complicated because it's very linear. So it's not like you're really choosing a whole lot, in my opinion. So that's probably the most negative part for me is everything besides the story and the voice acting. Some of the character stuff you run into is fantastic and it's hilarious almost. Me and Nick had a very short conversation about some of the characters you run into. You could talk to and it will ask you for things. The game is good and light based. Good and bad based. So you make decisions, makes you good, make decisions, make you bad, that kind of thing. So you run into characters that try to entice you to do good things and bad things. I chose the good route because I'm a good person. Pat's a bad person, so I bet he chose bad. But the voice acting is beautiful. I love the voice acting in it, and I love the story in it. It's the story is based around Baba Yaga. If anybody's seen Ant-Man, that one guy was always talking about, it's Baba Yaga. That's the first time I had ever heard of it, and then I just started hearing more and more about it as things came through. But it's a beautiful story. It is a beautifully voice acted. Characters are really interesting. But there is no gameplay that pushes you forward, that makes you feel like you really want to move. The only thing that kept me going was the story itself. The gameplay was just really meandering. There was just not enough there. It felt too slow paced. It felt like some things were there that just didn't need to be. Some things that needed to be there just weren't. It's a very 50-50 game for me. I think the studio did an amazing job on the characters and story, and voice acting was superb. But other than that, I couldn't give two craps about the gameplay. What about you, Nick?
Yeah. The story is fine, whatever. The game is, I do like. I think the voice acting can be pretty good at times. I like some of the characters. The characters are very weird. It's like not, it's not humans that you're talking to. It's things like mushrooms and walking sticks and ants and stuff like that, and larvae. So it's and sometimes imps or goblins. So it's like very strange in that aspect, and everything is really like mystical and just strange in that concept. Like nothing seems real in a sense with it. The combat is its lowest part. You do upgrade your stats, like Shane was saying. You can buy skill points into certain things, but and it does make it a little bit easier as you upgrade in skills, because you do get things like being able to hold more arrows, or going from not aiming to aiming a lot quicker, drawing back your bow a lot faster, and things like that, depending on what you decide to put points into as you upgrade. That's all around collecting things out in the world. Like chests have teeth that you need to collect, and you collect flowers, and you collect sticks, and you collect feathers, and you collect crystals, and just a bunch of weird random stuff. It's very odd. Like there doesn't seem to be any, I don't know, the stuff they have you collect and pick up just doesn't seem like it should be the stuff you need to collect and pick up. Like it just doesn't seem to fit with the whole thing. I don't know. They're like making arrows, sticks, and feathers, sure, but everything else is kind of like, to make a antidote, you have to have a flower and a crystal. Okay. So this is an example. So this is very strange, but overall, the problem with this game too is it is they try to do an open world type thing, but I feel like don't decide when you're in the open world to just traverse the open world, or you'll just die. You basically need to follow the marker on the map and just kind of linear style follow where you're going. Because I did that, as soon as I came out of the main area, because you start out in the tutorial area, which is more of a linear type location. And then once you get out there, you're kind of out in this world. And I was like, I'm just going to explore and everything. And then I got stuck. I saved my game in one spot and got stuck where every time I went through, I would be ambushed by 1,000,000 goblins and just die over and over and over. And like, I could not get out of there. Even if I ran away, they'd just be following behind me. And so how I got past that, though, is I moved the game down from normal mode to story mode. Story mode allowed me to at least get by them and continue on with the game. This game can be difficult, so it's better just to, at least starting out, I don't know how, I don't know if it would change later on, but starting out, you want to follow just where the path takes you, where the marker tells you to go, and just kind of follow that route. And that's about it. But ultimately, this game is just really weird. I don't know. It's not for me. I don't find any interest in playing it. When I'm playing through there's nothing that really drives me. Kind of what Shane was saying, there's nothing really that drives me forward, right? Not even the story in this case or anything like that. Like nothing drives me forward to want to keep exploring and playing. And the graphics, this is a next gen only title, but the graphics are very dated looking. They're very like, I don't know what it is. Me and Pat were talking about the other day, and I said the word muddy, or just kind of like, I don't know. Everything just looks like dull.
My first thought was they were just simple. It's like everything in there was kind of a just typical average thing you would see in a video game. Nothing spectacular, just plopped in.
Right. Yeah, that's what it seems like muddy and just kind of like, I don't know. Everything just didn't seem to go together. I don't know. There's something weird with the graphics and how everything's kind of colored. I don't know if it's the colors they're using or what it is, but it was just kind of seems like everything just didn't fit where it was at. And so I don't know. I mean, this game has fishing as well. You can fish. That's always fun. It's always fun in a game. You can cook meat. So it's got like this open world Skyrim-y aspect to it. It tries to, but I think this game would have been better off as a more linear style adventure than trying to become open world. This is one of those games that has a case of shouldn't have went open world. There are certain games that have that, where they would have been better as a more linear style game, with like checkpoints and kind of like an engrossing story that takes you through these. Because when you meet the ants and the larvae and you see and you fight the bosses and stuff like that, those aren't bad experiences. So I think it would have been better to have a more linear aspect where you run into these kind of semi-open world, maybe, right? But this is like not semi-open world. I mean, you can go pretty far out there. So like a semi-open, maybe, where it's kind of open, but they have borders, right? And they're trying to get you to follow this path. I think that would have been better than just being completely open world, where it feels like you can go wherever you want, but the game's really saying, no, you can, but you're not going to survive. So why don't you just head over there to the marker, like a good little boy, So that's the best way. But ultimately, yeah, it's not for me. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat you are. Yeah, and on the graphics thing, we were kind of chatting. The whole raining, messing up the screen aspect drove me nuts in the game. When it rains or when it's foggy or whatever, it builds up condensation on the screen. It's just annoying. And there was no way to turn that off. It was giving me a headache, to be honest, playing it. I'm like, oh God, this is annoying. It's like trying to squint through glasses when it's raining. And I'm like, oh God, this is the worst thing ever, right? But yeah, I would say where combat is where this game fails at. And only because early on, it just opens it, like Nick said, just opens you into this open world after you get past the linear area. And it's like, go wherever, it's like, it gives you, here's your quest, go do this. But if you're any type of like explorer, whatever, you're like, I'll go to that later. And you start looking around and you run into stuff that's just going to wax the floor with you, right? Because you don't get to learn the magic abilities right off bat, and you're trying to shoot 3 and 4 things coming at you with an arrow, and you can only craft 9 at a time. And you're like, if I miss more than 3 or 4 times, I'm going to have to craft real quick while these things are coming at me, And early on, there's little goblins and then exploding lightning bugs, and if they get close to you, they just blow off a bunch of your health. So the combat in this game is very, very annoying, especially early on, until you get things like the totem that attracts the creatures to it so they can attack that while you're picking them off, with your bow. And then you get the magic of melee ability when things are up close. You could do the little magic ability, kind of pushes them away and does some damage to lower level. So, I mean, I struggle with the combat in this game a lot. It didn't seem to flow properly, and it didn't seem to there's skill points you could put in to make things like drawing quicker and things like that on your bow, but that's going to be hours and hours and hours after you play, not like the first 10 or 15 minutes. So I struggled with the combat in this game a lot. And it has a good light system, but it's really hard to stay bad, because that was whole intention. Shane and Nick were like, yeah, we went good. And I was like, all right, I'll do the dark side. But it seemed like everything you did gave you good points. Like, don't put the flower in the vase. That's good points. Don't destroy the anthills. That's good points. Don't pick the weeds. That's good points. And I'm like, what the hell gives me bad points? Lying to the caterpillar gave me bad points. Helping the ant queen to the village of the people, that gave me bad points. But just about everything else was like good points. And I'm like, all right, well, this is annoying. It's hard to figure out what's going to give me good versus bad. So I never could get the balance quite right. And it stayed a little bit more higher on the good than I wanted it to. I wanted to see what happened if I went full bad or whatever, but I didn't get to play it long enough to get that far. And to be honest with you, I don't think I would get that far, just because it's a highly boring game. The combat is very repetitive. It's the same thing over and over and over. It's like, am I going to waste an arrow on this, or I'm going to waste some mana on this to cast a magic ability? And then it's, as Nick said, it's collecting a bunch of crap. You're collecting just about everything under the sun for your witch's brew, so that you can either, upgrade your abilities with it, or craft like potions and arrows and totems and things like that out of it, So it's all it, and it's got this whole center around witch theme, which is all right. I don't mind that. It seemed like a pretty good concept in the beginning. It's got this whole witchy theme, brewing a potion in the pot, to upgrade your skills. And there's a black cat that helps teleport you from your save area back to the main location where the cauldron's at and things like that. So there's some interesting concepts to it, but the combat really, really takes away from this game. And I'm too big of a shiny person. I run out of the map and I'm just like, next thing I know, I'm way past my objective. And I'm like, hopefully nothing kills me out here. And that's when you get jumped by 4 or 5 little goblin guys. And you're like, well, I guess I had that coming. I shouldn't have strayed from the path. So, and the boss battles didn't seem too difficult so far, what I ran into. They're just not that difficult, but they are a little bit strategic. There's a few things can happen, but I mean, there's only so much you can do, especially in the beginning when you only have a bow, a totem, and, you know, a anti-poison potion, and then pretty much it, you know, and then some magic to push things away. So, I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. I mean, there's a lot of mythology. There seems like a lot of homage to things like Alice in Wonderlands and some stuff like that with what's going on in there. You know, the smoking caterpillar, you know, I told him up was down and down was up so I can get some evil points. And I don't know what that does with anything besides give me evil points. Like I said, so I'm a little lost and a little torn on it. It seems to be tracking very well amongst players what this game is, but it just must not be for me, because even the RPG elements couldn't keep me engaged in the game. So, but that's just me. You know, it was it wasn't quite good enough for me in that RPG aspect.
No, I kind of thought you guys would enjoy the story a little bit more, because I enjoyed it. Like, one of the very first things that I did, and I'm going to say it was on purpose, but we know it was an accident. I fell into the water. The very first objective you get is to, it's not really going to spoil anything, you got to build a bridge. I fell in the water, but there is a voice in your head that speaks to you. And when I fell in the water, it told me, you know, if you're a witch, you would float. If you're human, you drown. Well, I drowned, so must be human, or am I? It has like a little bit of a psychological thing going on with the story, and that's one of the things I like. Maybe it's because it reminded me a little bit of Senua Saga, Hellblade. The way that the voice in the head worked, you know, is kind of psychological. I enjoyed that. But yeah, Pat's absolutely right. The combat does not work. And I agree with Nick. I think more of a linear focus, maybe some branching paths kind of thing, but, you know, more guide you to A and B. I think that'd have been a much better way for them to go. 'Cause I think they did a fantastic job, with the story and the voice acting. It's just everything else around it just didn't work for me. And that sucks, because I thought I was going to really get into it at first with the story, and then all the combat stuff kind of started coming into play, and it was just nope, don't like it.
Yep. And it's very hard to get used to, right? You pretty much think of this as an archery combat game with some magic abilities and stuff like that. So I would say, you know, it's got crafting, it's got some magic, it's got, you know, it's really meant to be an archery type combat game, but stuff just spawns, like, you know, because nothing is just, there's a few things that just hang out in the world, right? The in the beginning areas, it's the water blobs and the fire fairy chicks. But the little goblins just appear out of nowhere. So you're walking along going, hey, cool, I'm on my way to objective. And next thing you know, 2 to 4 little goblins come out of the ground and they're chasing you. And you're backpedaling and shooting because you can't take hits. I mean, you don't have very much health. You have like 3 hearts. And every time one of them hits you, it takes half a heart away. So you're like, okay, if I get hit 6 times, I'm dead. So, you know, and the 5th time you get hit, your entire screen goes red. So it's like super annoying, you know, covering your screen. You're like, well, crap, now I can't see where that goblin's at, you know? So the combat is the worst part of this game, unfortunately. It could have had some potential. I was looking forward to some archery combat, but it didn't live up to what I was expecting. Like I said, but that's just me. This game is trending pretty well, and everywhere else it's like 9 out of 10 and stuff everywhere. So cool. You guys got anything else you want to chat about on Blacktail before we put our bows away for good, since we're not that good at it?
Nope, my string broke.
All right. Well, let us know what you think. Have you played this game? Are you going to play it? You know, let us know what you kind of think of that. I mean, we may be missing a huge point here with this game because it doesn't seem to be faring too well amongst our group, but everywhere online, it seems to be faring fairly well and getting good reviews and good marks. Maybe we just haven't given it enough time that it needs. I don't know, but it's very boring and very slow. And typically we can trudge through a slow burner, but this one seems to be a little bit more than a slow burner. So let us know what you think down in the comments. And don't forget, if you've made it this far, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and like the video for us to help us out. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope to catch you in the next one.
See ya.